Prepare to be stunned. As Shunan makes her dramatic return to the opulent Zeng family estate, she's mercilessly humiliated by her brother's ruthless fiancé, Jiang Ru. Little does Jiang Ru know, Shunan is the undisclosed heiress to a staggering billion-dollar fortune. This shocking encounter ignites a fierce battle of power, secrets, and unexpected alliances that will leave you breathless.
These 5 years abroad changed me completely. I can only hope that my brother still recognizes me, and that I'm not too late to share in his happiness.
Shunan stepped off her flight hours earlier than expected, suitcase in hand. Despite her surprise early arrival, she was dressed in a graceful ensemble that accentuated her slim figure. She had made a vow never to be ridiculed again for her old weight, and she was eager to see how her family would react. In a private waiting area at the airport, Zeng Junxian, tall, sharp-featured, and beaming with excitement, finally spotted her. His eyes widened with disbelief at first, and then filled with joy. Zeng Junxian, breathless with excitement.
Sis, I almost didn't recognize you. You look radiant.
Look at you, Junxian. Have I been away so long that you've become a complete stranger too? You've grown even taller and more handsome. It's good to see you.
As the siblings embraced, Shunan felt the weight of her long absence lift from her shoulders. She could sense Junxian's relief that she had made it back in time for his engagement ceremony. On the drive to the Zeng family estate, Shunan peered out the window, taking in familiar streets tinted with the golden morning light. The city had changed. New skyscrapers glimmered on the horizon, and old shops she remembered had new owners. Yet the sense of home was unmistakable. Shunan, teasing him.
Aren't you forgetting something important, though? It's been 5 years, and you've never once brought your fiancé, Jiang Ru, abroad to meet me. Doesn't she even know about me?
She knows about you, of course. But you changed your flight schedule, sis. She thinks you're arriving this afternoon. I actually have someone picking her up, so you'll meet soon enough.
Shunan could see her brother's excitement mix with the slightest hint of nerves. He was proud of his fiancée and wanted everything to be perfect. She patted his hand encouragingly.
I'm happy for you, truly. I just hope she and I get along.
You will, though I must confess, she's not the only one in the family who'll be surprised. You used to be heavier. Everyone will be stunned by how you've changed.
Shunan, glancing down at her slim figure.
I'm 3 months pregnant now, Junxian. But with the strict regimen and lifestyle changes I made, it's not too obvious. It might surprise everyone, but I'm still me.
His eyes widened again. The thought of his sister being pregnant and that no one else knew suddenly clicked.
Sis, we have so much to catch up on. You must be exhausted from the flight. Once we get home, you should rest.
Don't fuss over me. I'm strong as ever. Let's just enjoy being together as a family again.
The Zeng estate's high iron gates swung open on cue, revealing a sweeping driveway lined with manicured hedges. Grand pillars supported the sprawling mansion, its courtyard abuzz with activity for the engagement celebrations. A passing staff member bowed politely, rushing off to oversee final arrangements in the backyard garden. Inside, the regal entrance hall was decked with flowers and ribbons in honor of the big day. Shunan took in the colorful bustle, her heart warmed by how the once quiet home was now filled with excitement. She glanced around but saw no sign of her soon-to-be sister-in-law. Zeng Junxian, gesturing upstairs.
Jiang Ru is supposed to be getting ready in one of the guest rooms. She'll come down soon enough to meet you. Meanwhile, sis, I'd like you to rest.
Well, I suppose I can't turn down a bit of comfort. I'll be upstairs if you need me. Don't worry, I won't vanish again.
His grin was wide and genuine. How he'd missed her presence. Unbeknownst to Shunan, another pair of eyes was tracking the siblings through the window. Jiang Ru, from across the hall, had arrived earlier than anyone realized. She held the doorknob gently, trying to listen. Her heart pounded with misgivings, for a rumor had reached her ears that Junxian was spotted with a beautiful woman. Could this woman be a mistress? Jiang Ru's thoughts.
This must be her. She's too familiar with Junxian, too comfortable calling him by his name. They posted something on social media, some photo that screamed intimacy. If she thinks she can steal him, she's dead wrong.
Her assumption simmered into anger. In her mind, there was no other possibility. The woman was clearly a seductress. The fact that Shunan was pregnant made Jiang Ru's worst fears swirl even faster. Storming away, Jiang Ru gathered her close cousins and friends, women who shared her appetite for drama. She complained bitterly, leaving out key facts and painting Shunan as an intruder set on sabotaging the engagement. Jiang Ru, seething with indignation.
That woman. She's brazen enough to stand so close to my fiancé, and we haven't even held the ceremony yet. If she's carrying his child, I'll make her pay.
Jiang Ru's cousin, whispering conspiratorially.
But what if this woman is really important to him? Are you sure she's not just an old friend?
Jiang Ru, raising her voice.
It's clear from the social media posts. She has to be his mistress. There's no other explanation. And on our engagement day, no less. I'll show her what happens when someone tries to steal from Jiang Ru.
Thus, the seeds of a vindictive plot were sown. A handful of Jiang Ru's confidants armed themselves with petty malice, ready to pounce on the unsuspecting Shunan. With the mansion's staff preoccupied by last-minute engagements in the garden and hall, Jiang Ru found her opening. Upstairs, Shunan had nestled into a quiet guest room. She placed a delicate black jade bracelet on a small table, setting aside the gift carefully wrapped in silk. That bracelet, an exquisite collector's piece, was meant for Jiang Ru as a gesture of goodwill. Shunan silently thought about how her mother had once cherished similar jade pieces, believing they brought harmony to a household. She also tenderly touched the protective amulet draped around her own neck, one she had acquired from a temple specifically for safeguarding her unborn child. Even though she was only a few months along, she cherished the little one more than anything. It was her private joy, something that gave her strength. Suddenly, footsteps shuffled outside her door. Two of Jiang Ru's cohorts pushed their way in, flanking Shunan. Their expressions were anything but friendly. Before she could question them, Jiang Ru burst in, face contorted with fury. Jiang Ru, pointing an accusing finger.
There you are, sneaking around in my fiancé's home, I see. We've all seen the photos of you two cuddling up on social media. You must feel so proud, stirring trouble for me on my engagement day.
Shunan stood startled by the intrusion, yet her voice remained calm.
You have it all wrong. I promise.
But Jiang Ru would not let her speak. She grabbed for the black jade bracelet, eyes narrowing. Jiang Ru, hissing.
Don't bother lying. I know you're some cheap mistress trying to worm your way into the Zeng family. If you think you can step on me to become his wife, think again.
In a flash, her cousins pinned Shunan's arms behind her back. The pregnant woman struggled, alarmed for the safety of her child. Her heart thumped in terror at this unexpected attack. She pleaded softly.
You're making a mistake. I'm not who you think I am. Let me call Junxian. He'll...
Enough. I won't listen to your pathetic excuses. You even had the nerve to bring a baby into this, hoping it'll ensure you a place in the family?
When she saw the protective amulet that Shunan wore, Jiang Ru's rage flared brighter. She believed wholeheartedly this unborn child was a tool to trap Junxian.
Get rid of that talisman. You won't need it once I'm through with you.
She slapped at Shunan's wrist and snatched the bracelet right off the small table. The precious jade shattered on the floor in a heartbreakingly irreparable ruin. Jiang Ru, laughing cruelly.
Oops, you like flaunting your gifts from Junxian? They mean nothing. I'll break everything you cherish.
As shards of jade scattered across the floor, Shunan's eyes filled with alarm and disbelief. She realized that even if she tried to talk sense into Jiang Ru, the woman's rage and insecurity blinded her. Worse still, the child in Shunan's womb now felt threatened by the violence swirling around them. Shunan, voice trembling.
Jiang Ru, please. If you won't believe me, at least don't harm my baby. I'll do anything.
Jiang Ru, cutting her off with mocking laughter.
If you're pregnant with Junxian's child, that's all the more reason to get rid of it today. Ladies, hold her down.
The cousins tightened their grip. Fear rippled through Shunan's body. She tried once more to call for help, but one of the cronies clamped a hand over her mouth. She kicked desperately, but her attempts to break free were futile. Then came the sound of rapid footsteps from the hallway. Before Jiang Ru could land another blow, the door burst open. Junxian stood there, breathless, flanked by two of his personal guards. Fury blazed in his eyes when he saw Shunan's disheveled state, her clothes torn, the broken jade shards on the ground, and her face contorted with terror. Junxian, voice shaking with anger.
Who? Who dared to lay a finger on my sister?
Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Jiang Ru's cruelty had just been exposed. Her eyes flickered between Junxian's furious gaze and the trembling Shunan. Sister. The realization hit her like a blow. Jiang Ru, voice wavering.
Sister? I didn't know. You called her your true love online. I thought she was...
Of course she's my true love. After our mother died, she raised me like a mother would. She is my sister and everything to me. Did you truly think I'd be so callous as to flaunt a mistress online? You've revealed your true colors.
He rushed to Shunan's side, slipping off his coat to cover her torn clothing. The protective amulet hung from her neck, slightly askew, but miraculously unharmed. His expression softened at the sight of it. If you were Shunan in this situation, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Junxian, softly.
Sis, I'm sorry. I had no idea this would happen. Are you all right?
Shunan, voice trembling with relief.
I'm fine, but my child.
Junxian bristled with renewed rage. The meltdown in the room continued as Jiang Ru tried to stutter out an explanation, but no words would suffice. Junxian's guards advanced, ready to remove the troublemakers. Some of Jiang Ru's friends cowered by the door, realizing the error of their ways. But it was far too late. Junxian, icily to Jiang Ru and her cronies.
Anyone who dares touch my sister again will pay dearly. Guards, take them away.
Jiang Ru, desperate, reaching out.
Junxian, wait, this was all a misunderstanding. I love you. I didn't know she was your sister. You must believe me.
Junxian, shaking his head in disbelief.
You never even listened to her protests. You never gave her a chance to speak. You just assumed the worst. No fiancé of mine would ever do such a malicious thing, especially to my family.
And with those words, all the illusions Jiang Ru had about a perfect future in the Zheng family seemed to shatter. She could see the guards stepping forward, and she scrambled for a final attempt at mercy, clutching at the fringe of Junxian's sleeve, her tears spilled, but not necessarily from remorse, more from panic at losing her golden ticket to a wealthy life. Shunan, turning her face away.
Junxian, let it be. She's not worth it.
Her voice was calmer now. She'd seen enough. They had broken the gift, an irreplaceable heirloom, and tried to harm her unborn child. She felt heartbreak mingled with relief that Junxian had intervened in time. Junxian, releasing a slow breath.
I'll handle this, sis. You just rest. Let my men escort you to another room and get the doctor to check on you.
Shunan nodded, letting the adrenaline subside. One of the Zheng family attendants came forward, supporting her as they guided her away from the wreckage. The painful bruise on her arm pulsed, but she was more worried about the baby. She had come all this way to celebrate Junxian's engagement, never expecting she would stand in as the victim in such a savage misunderstanding. From the hallway, Shunan glanced back one last time, seeing Jiang Ru on her knees, tears streaking her perfectly made-up face. The shattered jade lay beneath her, a silent testament to her vicious nature. Jiang Ru, voice trembling, hardly daring to breathe.
Junxian, this is all a misunderstanding. I'm sorry. I was blinded by jealousy.
Junxian, looking at her as though seeing her for the first time.
All you had to do was trust me. But you've shown me exactly who you are. Our engagement ends here.
At that moment, the hush of the hallway was deafening. Jiang Ru's last pleas hung in the air, drowned by the echoes of her violence. Junxian's footsteps clicked firmly against the marble floor as he walked away from her, leaving the engagement ring clattering from her shaking hands onto the cold, polished tile. Safe in a different guest suite, Shunan rubbed her belly gently, relief flooding her system as a family doctor carefully examined her. No major harm had come to the baby, though she would need rest. Junxian hovered by her side, worried. Junxian, voice laden with guilt.
Sis, you shouldn't have gone through this. I brought you here to celebrate, not to watch you suffer.
Shunan, managing a reassuring smile.
Don't blame yourself. Neither of us could have predicted her reaction, and at least the baby and I are safe. Besides, you stepped in right on time.
She remembered how, as kids, Junxian would cling to her whenever bullies picked on him for being the motherless boy. She used to defend him like a little lioness. Now it was his turn. Junxian, placing his hand over hers.
I owe you everything, sis. Mom's gone, but you've been like a parent to me. I promise I'll protect you and your child from now on. No one will ever harm you again.
Shunan smiled through a haze of exhaustion, drifting off to a needed rest. As she closed her eyes, she pondered the swirl of revelations and heartbreak that had rocked the day. But something else stirred in her mind. The memory of their father, a man they had all but distanced themselves from after their mother's death. She had heard he now lived as a live-in son-in-law somewhere else, carrying shame and regret. Shunan wondered if her homecoming should also be a time for deeper family healing. And so, in the quiet stillness of her room, Shunan realized that this was only the beginning of her return. In the morning, she would have a far larger mission at heart, one that involved not just clearing her name or reuniting with her brother, but also reconciling with their estranged father. Morning light crept through half-drawn curtains, illuminating the polished floors of the Zheng family mansion. Shunan stirred awake, cradling her abdomen protectively. The events of the previous day weighed on her mind. Her violent encounter with Jiang Ru, the cancellation of the engagement, and the deep hurt it caused her brother, Junxian. Despite her exhaustion, she was determined to face what lay ahead. She rose, draping a light shawl over her shoulders. A knock at the door followed almost instantly. Junxian, softly, from the doorway.
Sis, I brought breakfast. Congee, some fruit. Nothing heavy. How are you feeling?
Shunan, offering a gentle smile.
I'm fine. Don't worry so much. But thank you. It's been a long time since you fussed over me like this.
He set the tray down, eyes brimming with regret at the bruises marring his sister's arms. Junxian, with remorse.
If only I'd known Jiang Ru's true nature sooner, you'd have been spared this. You and the baby should never have been in harm's way.
Shunan patted his hand in reassurance.
Don't beat yourself up. She showed her true colors. It's better you found out now. But Junxian, I have another concern. Have you heard from Dad lately?
At the mention of their father, Junxian's shoulders stiffened. He turned his gaze away, struggling with old wounds. Junxian, voice quieter.
Why bring him up? He's the reason Mom died. She went out looking for him during one of his important social calls. Then the accident happened. You know, that's why I've barely spoken to him.
Memories of that tragic night flickered in Shunan's mind. Their mother's car crash had left an unhealed chasm in the family, but these past years, Shunan had traveled far, gleaning fragments of truth about their father's own regrets and suffering.
I think we should see him. He's been living in the Liu household. Word is, they don't treat him well, and we shouldn't let bitterness blind us forever.
Junxian clenched his jaw. The idea of reconciling with his father dredged up dormant anger and pain.
They don't treat him well? If that's true, then the Liu family has even more to answer for. Fine, I'll go with you, but not because I've forgiven him. Only to see if your information is accurate.
Shunan, with relief in her tone.
That's enough for now. Thank you, Junxian.
She took a sip of warm congee, bracing herself for the confrontation to come. That very morning, a cluster of black cars wound down the mansion's driveway. Through the window, Shunan noticed a well-dressed gentleman stepping out, flanked by anxious associates. Their purposeful stride suggested urgent business. Junxian, recognizing the figure.
That's Guan Yue from the Huaqiang Chamber of Commerce. I heard he's in financial trouble. Might be here to see you.
Shunan, pensive.
He approached me yesterday, asking for investment to save the chamber from a takeover. But with everything that happened, I forgot to give him a final response.
She sighed, recalling how Guan Yue had also inadvertently come to her rescue. His sincerity, if somewhat desperate, had been evident. Junxian nodded, stepping aside as the door to Shunan's suite opened, and a staff member ushered Guan Yue in. Guan Yue, bowing respectfully.
Madam Zeng, Mr. Zeng, forgive my intrusion so early. I wouldn't have come if it weren't urgent.
Shunan gestured for him to take a seat.
No apologies needed, Chairman Guan. Please say what you must.
Guan Yue, with polite desperation.
Huaqiang Chamber is on the verge of collapse. The other two major chambers are pressuring us. You mentioned a possible investment, but it's still tied up in bureaucratic formalities. I've come to see if you might expedite the process. Otherwise, my entire organization will crumble in days.
His hands trembled, reflecting the magnitude of his request. Junxian, glancing at Shunan.
Sis, you'd truly invest in Huaqiang Chamber?
I gave my word. Guan Yue, consider it done. My assets abroad have some transfer delays, but I'll see to it personally that everything's cleared by tomorrow.
Hope lit Guan Yue's features, and he bowed gratefully. Guan Yue.
Madam, your kindness, I won't forget it. The Huaqiang Chamber is prepared to pledge full loyalty to the Zeng family in any future collaborations.
Junxian, nodding in approval.
Let's finalize the paperwork then. My sister will handle the specifics. After all, she's the reason I have any success at all.
Guan Yue smiled with relief. Then, as if suddenly recalling some unspoken matter, his expression grew solemn. Guan Yue, quietly, almost apologetic.
Madam Zeng, I heard you might pay a visit to the Liu family. Please, be cautious. They have certain unscrupulous members who might cause trouble, especially their eldest daughter, Liu Huilan, and her siblings. They have a history of bullying.
A flicker of unease passed through Junxian. He was beginning to realize this might be more than just a father's minor predicament.
Thank you for the warning, Chairman Guan. We'll keep it in mind. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have to prepare.
With a final bow, Guan Yue departed, leaving the siblings alone once more. Two black SUVs cruised through the bustling streets of Jiang City, heading toward the Liu household. Shunan peered out the tinted window, her emotions roiling. She recalled faint memories from her early childhood, how her father, once a promising businessman, took a role as a live-in son-in-law for some complicated family arrangement. She had been too young to understand the reasons. All she knew was that her father's dignity seemed stripped away over the years. Shunan's thoughts.
How could Dad have ended up in this position? Cooking, cleaning, humiliated, when once he had so much pride? I need answers.
Beside her, Junxian sat in tense silence, arms folded. He, too, was wrestling with his own conflicted feelings about a father he once idolized and then came to resent. The estates of the Liu family sprawled behind tall gates, though not nearly as grand as the Zeng property. A small crowd had gathered at the entrance, likely alerted by the arrival of these unfamiliar vehicles. Junxian, to one of his staff, quietly.
Stay alert, we don't know how they'll react.
The gate creaked open. Inside, the siblings stepped onto the courtyard's stone path, where they found a small group of Liu relatives gossiping in hushed tones. A sharp voice echoed from the house, Liu Huilan shouting from within.
You old bastard. The floors aren't spotless. Do you want me to lose face when guests arrive?
Shunan and Junxian exchanged a horrified glance. The next moment, they witnessed Mr. Liu, their father, albeit forcibly renamed to Liu Wei in this household, emerge from the door. He wore a threadbare apron, meekly bowing his head. Liu Wei, the father, trembling, voice subdued.
I'm sorry, I'll clean again.
A wave of anger flooded Shunan's chest. This was the man who once carried her on his shoulders at carnivals, who taught Junxian how to ride a bicycle. Now he was a shadow of himself. Shunan calling out firmly.
Dad,
Her voice startled not only the father, but all the Liu relatives present. Liu Huilan spun around, her glare landing on the new arrivals. Liu Huilan, with a sneer,
Who are you calling Dad? This worthless man belongs to the Liu family. Know your place before barging in.
Junxian's fists clenched. He stepped forward, but Shunan gently placed a hand on his shoulder, stepping ahead herself. Shunan, holding Liu Huilan's gaze.
I'll call him Dad because he's my father, no matter what name you force on him. You have no right to talk to him like that.
A hush fell over the courtyard. Some of the younger Liu siblings started whispering to each other, glancing nervously at the imposing figure of Zheng Junxian by Shunan's side. Liu Huilan, scowling, but trying to mask her alarm.
So, you're the rumored daughter who ran away, the one who hasn't bothered to call or send money for decades? We fed him, clothed him, and you think you can just barge in and snatch him away?
The father, trembling, looked at Shunan with tears forming in the corners of his eyes. He hadn't seen her in years, yet recognized his beloved daughter instantly. Father, Liu Wei, quiet, emotional.
Nan, you've come back.
Shunan's eyes brimmed with tears. She took a step closer, noting the weary lines on his face and the trembling in his hands. He seemed both overjoyed to see her and terrified that the Liu family would punish him for it.
Dad, I'm here to take you home. We're not leaving you here anymore.
Liu Wei, father, voice trembling.
Child, I don't deserve your kindness, and I have a debt to repay here.
Shunan's gaze hardened. Shunan, looking at Liu Huilan and the assembled relatives.
What kind of debt? I've only seen you forcing him into menial labor and humiliation. He's not your servant. He's our father.
A chorus of mocking laughter erupted from a few of the Liu relatives. Liu Huilan.
Debt. It's the cost of housing him all these years. You think the Liu family would keep a useless man for free?
Zheng Junxian, anger blazing.
He's not useless. He's our father, and we can afford to pay any so-called cost. Now, let him go.
Liu Huilan, folding her arms defiantly.
Just like that? Where's our compensation for all the meals, the bed, the clothes, and the trouble we've had to endure? At least 500,000, if not more.
Shunan almost laughed at the brazenness. They demanded money for the same father they had been abusing all this time? Shunan, voice icy.
You want 500,000 for your cruelty? Pathetic.
She was about to say more when her father gripped her arm. Father, Liu Wei, pleading softly.
Nan, don't argue with them. I'm old. I don't want you and your brother in danger because of me. Let me stay.
Junxian's expression turned fierce, the anger boiling to the surface.
No one is staying here to be abused another day. You'll live with us, Dad. And if the Liu family tries to stop us, they'll regret it.
A ring of Liu cousins and in-laws began closing in, sensing the confrontation was about to escalate. Suddenly, squealing tires pierced the tense silence. A sleek black car roared up the driveway. Its door swung open, revealing Guan Yue from the Huaqiang Chamber of Commerce. He hurried over, accompanied by two imposing security officers, each wearing earpieces and dark suits. Guan Yue raising his voice so all could hear.
Hold it right there. Anyone thinking they can bully Mr. Zheng's family should think again.
Shunan's eyebrows rose. She hadn't expected Guan Yue to intervene so directly. Yet she suspected he had come partly out of concern for her father's well-being, and partly as a show of loyalty to the Zhengs, having just received her commitment to invest. Liu Huilan, eyes flickering with uncertainty.
President Guan, what are you doing here? The Liu family never invited you.
I'm here because Madame Zheng specifically asked me to assist if the Liu family caused trouble. The entire Huaqiang chamber stands behind her. If you want to extort money from them, you'll have to reckon with us first.
A ripple of panic spread among the Liu relatives. They had hoped to intimidate Shunan and Junxian, but this unanticipated alliance complicated their plan. Liu Huilan, voice shaky but still obstinate.
You have no business in our family affairs, Guan Yue. This man, she calls him dad, is legally under the Liu household now.
Guan Yue stepping closer, arms crossed.
Oh, really? Then let's talk about the 100,000 the Liu family owes my chamber. With the interest piling on for years, you're on the hook for a significant sum.
Liu Huilan's face paled.
That loan was a misunderstanding. We'll pay it eventually.
Zheng Junxian raising an eyebrow.
Funny. You demand 500,000 from us, yet you can't repay your own debt. Don't try to hold my father hostage. If you can't settle your accounts, the law will do it for you.
The father watched the confrontation unfold, looking torn. He had never wanted to burden his children with his messy circumstances, nor cause them conflict with the Liu family.
Nan, Junxian, this is all my fault.
Shunan, firm yet gentle.
Dad, you've spent too many years blaming yourself. Let us help you now.
Sensing their advantage, Shunan stepped toward Liu Huilan, her posture poised. Shunan, quiet strength in her tone.
500,000, was it? Do you truly believe you're entitled to that sum for years of cruelty? You made him cook and clean, scolded him like an animal, even forced him to eat from a dog's bowl.
Some of the Liu relatives winced at having their shameful behavior laid out so openly.
Truth is, you owe him. But I'm not here to bicker over trifling amounts of money. I'm here to free my father from your tyranny. Either let him go peacefully, or I'll buy out all your liabilities and watch as your entire family is chased out of Jiang City.
A hush fell over everyone, even Junxian blinking in awe at his sister's unshakable resolve. Liu Huilan, eyes darting, desperation creeping in.
You think you can just toss around threats? The Liu family isn't that easily intimidated.
Try us.
Immediately, two of the Zheng family's bodyguards stepped forward, their stance protective. Meanwhile, Guan Yue's men formed a silent wall of support. Caught between these formidable forces, Liu Huilan looked around, seeking rescue from her siblings, but they all kept their heads down, unwilling to fight a losing battle. One younger Liu relative nervously muttering,
We can't win this. Just let her take him.
another relative,
If we don't, the debt alone will ruin us. We'll lose the house anyway.
cornered, Liu Huilan tried one last bluff. Liu Huilan, eyes brimming with frustration,
Fine, take him then. But you'll pay the 500,000. That's the price for his release.
Shunan, an icy smile.
You want 500,000? You'll get nothing.
She paused, letting her words sink in.
Instead, you'll deliver a formal letter of apology to my father for the years of mistreatment. And you'll vacate the Liu estate in Jiang City. If you won't, then I'll ensure your family name is blacklisted. No future, no prospects. Decide now.
It was a stunning ultimatum, and even Junxian's eyes flickered in surprise at how far his sister was prepared to go. But then he remembered the fresh bruises on her arms, reminders of how cruelty had nearly ended in tragedy. If the Liu family had done this to their father for so long, perhaps her severity was justified. Zheng Junxian, softly to Shunan.
Sis, you're sure?
Shunan, meeting his gaze.
They never showed Dad mercy. We can't afford to let them roam free to harm him again.
At that, Liu Huilan staggered back. Her face drained of color, realizing she had underestimated Shunan entirely. Liu Huilan, voice cracking.
You're vicious. Will you truly ruin our entire family?
You ruined yourselves by your own actions. Now get out of my way.
With a defeated snarl, Liu Huilan waved a dismissive hand, allowing Shunan and Junxian to move toward their father. Guan Yue's men kept watch, ensuring no one tried anything rash. The father stood trembling in the center of the courtyard, tears welling in his eyes as his children approached. Shunan gently placed her arm around his back, feeling his frail body relax under her support. Junxian, still grappling with deep-seated anger and hurt, nonetheless reached out hesitantly.
Dad, let's go. You don't belong here anymore.
Overcome with emotion, the father could scarcely form words.
I never thought I'd see both of you together, looking out for me.
That's enough talk. We'll have plenty of time at home. Let's leave this place for good.
From somewhere deeper in the estate, a few Liu relatives hovered, unwilling or unable to stop them. The oppressive hold they'd had on this man was ending far sooner than they ever anticipated. As the trio exited the gates, Guan Yue nodding respectfully at them, Shunan felt a surge of relief wash over her. She had succeeded in retrieving their father, but she knew the real challenge lay ahead. Bridging the gap between father and son, healing the scars from her mother's tragic death, and ensuring the father could truly start anew. Guan Yue, catching up to them for a moment.
Madam Zeng, if you need help finalizing the matter with the Liu family's debt, you only have to say the word.
Thank you, Chairman Guan. We'll speak soon, and rest assured, your chamber's crisis will be resolved.
He bowed once more, watching the family climb into the SUV. Then the car rumbled away, leaving the battered pride of the Liu family behind. Inside the car, the father stared out the window at passing city lights. He clutched the hem of his worn shirt, silent tears dampening his cheeks. Junxian, softly breaking the silence.
Dad, you never had to stay there all these years. After Mom passed, why?
He trailed off, swallowing back the painful memory. Shunan gently slid closer, placing a hand atop their father's.
I thought living in misery might pay for my mistakes. Your mother died looking for me. I was out drinking with business partners when she needed me most. So when the Liu family took me in, told me that being their son-in-law would bring some stability, I accepted. Partly because I lost all sense of self, but also because I felt I deserved no better.
The raw honesty in his words softened the edges of Junxian's anger.
I know you've lived with the regret every day, but punishing yourself this way, it didn't bring her back. It only caused more hurt.
I know, I'm sorry, and I've been so afraid you two would hate me forever.
Junxian let out a ragged sigh. A swirl of pain, love, and lingering resentment churned inside him. But seeing his father in such a broken state, he knew the blame he carried had turned into a burden that weighed on everyone.
Dad, we'll talk more at home. At least now I can make sure no one else mistreats you.
Thank you, son.
A subtle shift seemed to pass between them. Though years of rifts wouldn't vanish instantly, they had taken their first step toward understanding. Shunan exhaled. Relieved that her father was safely in their care, she thought about the father's future, a chance to have a new life. And perhaps, if fate was kind, the beginnings of a real family again. They returned to the Zeng mansion by late afternoon. Servants bustled about as word spread of the father's arrival. Some recognized him from old photos, while others simply greeted him with respectful bows. Unsure of his identity, but aware of his relationship to Shunan and Junxian. In a quiet sitting room, a tea table was arranged with snacks and herbal brews. Shunan guided her father to a comfortable seat, while Junxian dismissed the staff to give them privacy. Shunan, kneeling beside her father's chair.
Dad, you can stay here as long as you like. We'll help you get back on your feet. You're part of this family no matter what's happened.
He nodded, fresh tears threatening to spill.
You've both grown so strong. Your mother would be proud.
Shunan closed her eyes, letting his words soothe old heartaches. The father looked over at Junxian, tall, confident, and noticeably protective.
Junxian, you've become someone important, haven't you?
Thanks to Sis. She's the real backbone of the Zeng family. I learned everything from her.
A pause hung in the air, thick with emotion. Finally, their father gently placed a hand on Junxian's arm.
I'm so sorry for all of it, my son.
Junxian nodded, struggling to rein in the swirl of emotions.
We'll sort it out, Dad. Let's just take it day by day.
Shunan smiled. Laying a delicate hand across her growing belly, she remembered how close she had come to losing the child in yesterday's madness, and felt gratitude for being safe now. In that moment, the three of them shared a fragile sense of renewed family, each hoping this might be the start of healing. Just as quiet contentment settled in, one of the staff members lightly knocked and peered in. House staff, speaking softly.
Madam, there's a commotion in the entry hall. Jiang Ru has arrived, demanding to speak with Mr. Zeng.
Junxian tensed, fists curling at the mention of that name. Shunan frowned. Recalling the savage confrontation, Shunan with a hint of apprehension.
Didn't we send her away? What could she possibly want now?
Zeng Junxian, standing abruptly.
Let's find out.
The father, unfamiliar with the situation, watched as the siblings exchanged glances. Shunan, turning to her father.
Dad, stay here and rest. We'll handle this.
Guilt flickered in his eyes. He felt unworthy to give them any instructions.
Be careful, child.
In the grand foyer, Jiang Ru stood in disarray, hair slightly undone, her eyes red from crying. She wore yesterday's delicate gown, now wrinkled and dirty at the hem. Two of Junxian's guards hovered near her, poised to remove her if she attempted anything rash. Jiang Ru, her voice breaking as soon as she saw Junxian.
Junxian, please hear me out. I've lost everything. My family is in chaos, and you canceled the engagement. I know I was wrong, but I never meant to really hurt anyone.
Shunan stepped forward, eyes cold.
You nearly killed my unborn child, Jiang Ru. Perhaps you didn't hold the knife, but your rage was more than enough.
Jiang Ru's lips quivered, guilt momentarily flashing across her features.
I was blinded by jealousy. I didn't know you were Junxian's sister. If I'd known...
Zeng Junxian, cutting in, voice unwavering.
Don't you see how twisted that logic is? You're saying that if you'd known she was my sister, you wouldn't have done it. But what if she really had been someone else? Would it be acceptable to hurt a woman just to protect your so-called status?
A hush pressed on the marble floors, echoing with tension. Jiang Ru's eyes flickered with desperation, searching for any thread of forgiveness. Jiang Ru, barely above a whisper.
I'm sorry. Can't we start over? I love you, Junxian. Don't throw me away.
Shunan folded her arms, letting her brother speak for himself. Zeng Junxian, eyes hard.
Start over? After what you did to my sister and my child-to-be niece or nephew? No, it ends here. The engagement is off, and you're never to set foot in this house again.
Tears streamed down Jiang Ru's cheeks. She turned her pleas on Shunan.
Shunan, as a woman, can't you sympathize with me? I was so scared of losing him. My family. We're not well off. I thought I'd never have another chance if I let Junxian slip away. That's why I...
Shunan, unmoved, remembering the pain of being pinned down.
That's enough. Fear of poverty doesn't justify cruelty. If you truly loved Junxian, you'd have trusted him, not assaulted anyone who came near him.
Jiang Ru collapsed onto her knees, sobbing uncontrollably.
Please, at least give me a chance to repay the damage. I smashed an heirloom bracelet worth 300 million, was it? I don't have that kind of money, but I'm willing to work to pay it off. Just don't turn me away like a beggar, please.
Junxian's resolve didn't waver.
Work off a debt that enormous? How many lifetimes would that take you? You brought this on yourself.
Shunan's gaze flickered. She recalled the heartbreak she felt at seeing the black jade shards on the floor. That precious gift was meant to be a welcoming gesture for Jiang Ru, a sign of good faith. Yet Jiang Ru had destroyed it without hesitation.
We're pressing charges. That's all there is to it. If you care about your future at all, you'll accept the legal consequences and leave us in peace.
Seeing no pity in their eyes, Jiang Ru let out a wail of despair, tears splashing onto the floor. Two guards stepped forward to escort her outside. She let them guide her to the door, casting one final glance at Junxian. Jiang Ru, in a final, trembling whisper.
I really did love you, but I see now, I ruined everything.
The main door closed behind her with an echoing thud. A long silence followed. the siblings standing in the entry hall, hearts heavy from the confrontation. Despite Jiang Ru's wrongdoing, seeing anyone in such a desperate state left a bitter aftertaste in Shunan's mouth. Still, she couldn't forget how perilously close she'd come to losing her child.
Sis, are you okay?
Yes, I've made it through worse. Jiang Ru. I hope she finds a better path someday, but it won't be with us.
They turned to go back upstairs, but then one of Junxian's assistants approached with a respectful bow.
Sir, the Zheng Group Board is holding an emergency meeting tomorrow. They want to confirm details of the canceled engagement and, well, a plan for the future. Also, many are curious about your sister's return.
Shunan and Junxian exchanged glances. They knew that in wealthy circles, gossip spread like wildfire. A broken engagement and the revelation of a powerful, long-lost sister would be fuel for endless speculation. Zheng Junxian to Shunan.
Are you up for attending the board meeting with me? They'll want to meet you formally now that you're back in Jiang City.
Of course. I'm not running away this time. I'll stand with you.
She placed a protective hand over her belly. This baby, her future child, deserved a family rooted in strength and unity, not secrets or guilt. With her father safe under the Zheng roof and her brother at her side, Shunan felt more determined than ever. Shunan, thoughtful, to Junxian.
We'll face the board, settle any confusion about your engagement, and clarify my return. After that, we can turn our full attention to rebuilding our family, Dad included.
Zheng Junxian, softly smiling.
Thank you, sis. This time, let's do everything right.
As twilight settled, the household grew quiet. Guards closed the gates securely. No more unwelcome visitors would disturb them tonight. In a serene corner of the mansion, Shunan helped their father settle into a comfortable guest suite. She laid out fresh pajamas and showed him where extra blankets were stored.
You're giving me such a grand room. It's more than I deserve.
You deserve respect, Dad. Rest well. Tomorrow is a new day.
As she left, Junxian was waiting in the hallway, leaning against the banister.
Remember when you used to tuck me in every night when Mom was gone on business trips?
Of course. You insisted on a bedtime story, always about dragons or knights. You wanted to protect me, even in those stories.
Junxian gave a nostalgic laugh, then gently tapped her shoulder.
Now it's my turn to protect you, and Dad. Don't worry, sis. No one will harm either of you again.
Shunan patted his hand before withdrawing to her own room. Peaceful stillness enveloped the hallway, each sibling retreating to reflect on their thoughts. A calm hush fell over the Zheng mansion as the family sought a tentative rest. Father, daughter, and son, all under one roof for the first time in decades. Yet outside, whispers of scandal and corporate shifts swirled through Jiang City. The broken engagement, the reacquainted father, and the new revelations about Shunan's background threatened to topple carefully maintained facades. In the coming days, they would face the scrutiny of powerful board members, the cunning moves of rival families, and the lingering shadows of the past. But through it all, one hope shone, that for once, this family might stand united, forging a new future from the ashes of old mistakes. In the hush of dawn, the Zheng mansion awakened like a gentle giant. Dawn's soft light filtered through the tall windows, casting long beams across the marble floors. Shunan sat by the balcony in her robe, contemplating the day ahead. Despite the serenity of the morning, her heart felt restless. She knew this was the day she and Zheng Junxian would face the board of the Zheng group. Down the hallway, their father, still adjusting to the luxurious surroundings, stirred from his first peaceful night's sleep in decades. Unshackled from the Liu family's abuse, he felt unfamiliar hope for the future, but also concern for how his children would navigate the storms to come. While staff moved quietly to lay out breakfast, Junxian appeared, looking resolute, yet on edge. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his expression composed but alert. Zheng Junxian, gently to Shunan.
We should head out soon. The board members are already gossiping about our father's return and your reemergence. I want to make sure they understand the truth about everything.
Shunan rose, resting a hand on her abdomen. The unborn child she carried felt like a hidden promise of new beginnings.
Yes, I'm ready. Let's show them who we really are.
At the table, their father carefully folded a napkin, worrying he might not fit in among the polished image of the Zheng family.
Children, is it all right if I come along to the company? I don't want to intrude, but I'd like to see for myself. Maybe I can support you in some small way.
A faint hesitation touched Junxian's face. The board was an intimidating arena, but he glanced at Shunan and saw her gentle nod.
Yes, Dad, come with us. You should see how far we've come.
And so, father, son, and daughter prepared to leave for the board meeting together. The polished skyscraper housing the Zheng Group loomed above the bustling city traffic. Its gleaming glass facade reflected the sunshine, a symbol of the family's prestige and power. As their car pulled up to the main doors, a handful of employees bowed in greeting, yet whispers and sideways glances rippled among them. Rumors about the canceled engagement, the return of the mysterious sister and a newly reacquainted father, had spread like wildfire. Shunan stepped out first, composure unwavering. Junxian followed, helping their father exit the car. Even so, she noticed her father's slight tremor as he gazed at the massive corporate tower.
You're with us, Dad. Don't worry.
He gave a grateful nod, then mustered what dignity he could. Tall glass doors swung open onto a sprawling conference room with a polished mahogany table at its center. About a dozen board members sat in high-backed chairs, some old guard loyalists who had known Shunan and Junxian's mother, others younger magnates eager to seize any power vacuum. As Shunan, Junxian, and their father entered, a hush fell. Director Wu, a senior board member with silver-streaked hair, rose in greeting. Director Wu, diplomatically.
President Zheng, Madam Shunan, we are honored to have you both with us. And you've brought a guest, I see.
This is our father, Mr. Liu Wei, though he is by blood a Zheng. He'll be observing today's meeting.
A wave of murmurs passed among the board. Some had vaguely heard of the father's past, but never expected him to reappear. One board member, Madam Kai, arched an eyebrow.
Shall we get straight to the point, President Zheng? We know the engagement with Miss Jiang Ru has been called off. There are concerns that this abrupt change could affect the company's stability. Investors always pay attention to the family's personal alliances.
Junxian's expression tightened. He had prepared himself for these prying questions.
The engagement was a personal matter. I won't allow the company to suffer because of it, I assure you. As for Miss Jiang Ru, she behaved in a way that made the engagement impossible.
He glanced at Shunan, who took over smoothly.
I understand your concerns. However, the Zheng family remains stable. I've personally returned from overseas to ensure our international branches maintain growth. Our father is here as a testament to our family unity, not a point of weakness.
Madam Kai, analyzing Shunan carefully.
And you, Madam Shunan. We haven't seen you since you went abroad years ago. Yet your reputation preceded you as a capable negotiator in multiple foreign ventures. Are you planning to take on a formal role at the Zheng Group now?
Shunan and Junxian shared a knowing look.
If the board allows it, I'd like to lead new international projects. The details are in the proposals Junxian and I have prepared.
Several board members exchanged impressed glances. The rumor that Shunan was a strategic powerhouse in global markets seemed to be true after all. Even so, a few seemed skeptical about the sudden shift in family dynamics. As the meeting progressed, Director Li, who had always harbored ambitions to overshadow the Zheng siblings, leaned forward. Director Li, pointedly, I hear you've also taken a personal interest in helping the Huaqiang Chamber of Commerce. May I ask, does that reflect the Zheng Group's stance, or is it purely a private investment? Guan Yue's name was on everyone's lips these days. Shunan's eyes flicked over to Director Li, seeing through his attempt at undermining her. Shunan, coolly. It's a private investment, but the success of Huaqiang Chamber ultimately enriches the entire city's commercial landscape. Zeng Group benefits when Jiang City's economy thrives. I see no conflict of interest. Director Li, smiling thinly. I merely wanted clarification. We wouldn't want to entangle the Zeng Group's funds in personal vendettas or philanthropic gestures. Junxian clenched his jaw, irritated by the insinuation. Zeng Junxian. No entanglements here. If you have concerns about the Zeng Group's finances, we can open the books. Everything is above board. Director Li feigned acceptance with a shrug, but the tension in the room was palpable. Throughout the exchange, the father sat quietly, unsure if he should speak. Eventually, seeing the growing friction, he summoned his courage. Father, Liu Wei, clearing his throat.
Gentlemen, ladies, if I may say something, I know I have no formal standing here, but I want to address a misconception.
He stood, hands shaking slightly. Shunan and Junxian looked on, curious and a bit worried. He had never spoken in a forum like this before.
I can't speak to the complexities of business deals, but I do know the hearts of my children. Miss Jiang Ru gravely wronged my daughter. She endangered the family's future, and so the engagement ended. It was not a rash choice or a reflection of instability. It was an act of preserving this family's integrity.
A wave of murmurs rippled across the room. Director Li leaned forward again, eyes narrowed in skepticism. Director Li.
And what of your role, sir? Word has it you've been absent for years, living under another family's roof. Why reappear now? For personal gain.
The father's shoulders sagged at the harsh words, but he refused to avert his gaze.
I was absent. That is my greatest regret. But I returned because my children sought me out and saved me from a toxic household. I'm here only to support them, nothing more.
His sincere tone silenced the critics, at least momentarily. Shunan felt a surge of pride for her father's courage. She placed a supportive hand on his arm. Suddenly, the large conference room doors burst open. One of Zeng Group's senior assistants rushed inside, face pale. Senior assistant, breathlessly.
President Zeng, Miss Shunan. Urgent news. Huaqiang Chamber of Commerce is facing a hostile takeover. Competitors have launched a sudden bid, and Chairman Guan Yue is requesting immediate assistance.
A ripple of alarm swept through the board members. Director Li smirked slightly, as if he'd expected chaos from the Huaqiang involvement. Director Li, murmuring,
See, this is precisely the trouble with mixing personal endeavors and corporate interests.
Ignoring him, Shunan and Junxian exchanged a decisive glance.
We'll handle this swiftly. Get our legal and financial teams on standby. I want a full update on the takeover attempt.
Chairman Guan Yue helped us before. We won't abandon him now. Father, stay here. We'll be back soon.
The father nodded, stepping aside anxiously. He was not yet ready to jump into corporate battles, but he trusted his children to lead. The siblings swept out of the boardroom, leaving the directors in a flurry of speculation. In a private side office, Guan Yue appeared on a large video monitor, sweat beading on his brow. Guan Yue, voice strained.
Madam Zeng, President Zeng, I apologize for disturbing you mid-meeting, but our rivals blindsided us. They're buying up shares aggressively and threatening to seize controlling interest in the Huaqiang Chamber.
Calm down, Chairman Guan. Your shares are partially protected by our contract. We'll execute our contingency plan. We have enough capital to outbid them if necessary.
What about your board members? Are any defecting under pressure?
Some are wavering. Our rival's name carries weight. People don't want to gamble on a losing side.
Shunan leaned back, eyes thoughtful, recalling the binding clauses she'd written into her investment agreement.
Our lawyer will finalize an emergency share purchase, supplemented by Zeng Group's legal support. Chairman Guan, we need your public endorsement that you stand with us. Can you do that firmly and openly?
Yes, absolutely. I'll issue a statement today, pledging loyalty to the Zeng family alliance.
Good, we'll act fast. This rival's move might be strategic, but they've underestimated us.
They ended the call. Shunan immediately began drafting documents for the partial acquisition. The plan was bold. Zheng Group would publicly back Huaqiang, sending a message of strength. If the rival insisted on a hostile takeover, they would face the might of the Zheng Empire. As news of this power struggle spread through Jiang City, the Zheng siblings worked tirelessly from the office. While they orchestrated deals, a trembling figure stepped off the elevator onto their executive floor, Jiang Ru. The receptionist tried to stop her, but Jiang Ru pleaded with tears in her eyes. Jiang Ru, in a broken whisper,
I must see them. Please, I can't stay silent.
Word of her appearance reached Shunan. Surprised, she exchanged a glance with Junxian. Zheng Junxian, uneasy.
Why would she come here now? We have no business with her.
Shunan, frowning.
Send her in. Let's see what she wants. But keep security close, just in case.
Moments later, Jiang Ru entered the office, eyes swollen, as though she'd been crying nonstop. She looked at the bustling staff, the tense environment, and at last the siblings themselves. Jiang Ru, bowing her head.
I know you want nothing to do with me, but I heard about the hostile takeover. The rival who's leading the charge is someone connected to my family.
Shunan's eyes narrowed.
Your family? You never mentioned any connections to a large competitor.
Jiang Ru rubbed her hands anxiously.
It's my cousin. He runs a shadow operation that finances rival chambers for profit. He's cunning, and he hates the Zheng Group because he thinks I was mistreated.
Junxian's anger flashed, but he steadied himself. Zheng Junxian.
Your cousin. So this is some twisted revenge?
Yes, most likely. He wants to hurt you for rejecting our engagement, and for humiliating me. I came to warn you. I'm sorry I couldn't do this earlier, but it spiraled out of control.
Shunan studied Jiang Ru's tear-streaked face, trying to sense any ulterior motive. After a tense moment, she sighed.
If this is true, then your cousin is risking an entire chamber's livelihood just for petty vengeance. How do we stop him?
Jiang Ru bit her lip, pulling out a folded piece of paper.
I have some documents showing his funnel of funds. If you expose him publicly, it'll undermine his takeover attempt. I owe you that much.
She set the documents on the desk. Despite the deep wounds between them, Shunan felt a flicker of guarded gratitude. Zheng Junxian, quieter now.
You might have prevented a worse disaster, Jiang Ru, but don't think this absolves everything you've done.
Jiang Ru's eyes were downcast.
I know. I only hope one day you'll see that I truly regretted my actions. I never wished for bloodshed or ruin.
With that, she turned and left, escorted by security. Shunan exhaled, heart pounding. Shunan to Junxian.
Check these documents. If they're legit, we can use them immediately. Let's not waste time.
Junxian nodded. They began poring over the papers, verifying each financial link. Armed with Jiang Ru's evidence, Shunan and Junxian ramped up their strategy. Their legal team fired off injunctions and public statements, exposing the rivals' illegal dealings. Word raced through the business community, causing investors to question the rivals' integrity. Meanwhile, Guan Yue rallied his own board members to stay loyal, revealing the new backing from the Zheng Group. Stock prices, once dipping in panic, began a slow climb back up. Guan Yue, calling on speakerphone, voice breathless with excitement.
Madam President Zheng, the rivals' takeover attempt is unraveling. Their backers are withdrawing, afraid of criminal exposure. We're going to survive this.
Shunan, relieved but still vigilant.
Stay prepared for any last-minute moves from them. But it sounds like the worst is over.
Zheng Junxian.
Good. And after this, Huaqiang Chamber will be in our alliance for the long term. Together, we'll be even stronger.
A surge of triumph coursed through the Zheng siblings and their team. The crisis that threatened to topple both the Huaqiang Chamber and cast doubt on the Zheng Group had been averted. And though Jiang Ru remained an unwelcome reminder of past violence, her last-minute warning played a crucial role. News spread of the failed hostile takeover, and the city buzzed with talk of Shunan's quick thinking and Junxian's resolute leadership. Back at the Zheng mansion that evening, a sense of relief filled the halls. Their father smiled in wonder at the dinner table, surrounded by a united family he once believed he'd lost. Father, Liu Wei, in a quiet moment.
I'm so proud of you both. Your mother, she would have been too.
Shunan felt tears prick at her eyes. Junxian reached out, squeezing their father's hand.
We learned to be strong because we had to, and now we can finally be a family again.
Yet, Shunan noticed a lingering sadness in her father's eyes. She gently asked,
Dad, is something still weighing on your mind? He hesitated, then spoke in a low voice.
I want to properly atone for the past, for Mom's death, and I'd like to formally change my name back, to be recognized as part of the Zheng family once more, if you'll have me.
Junxian looked startled, but he nodded slowly, swallowing against the lump in his throat.
Yes, Dad. Let's do it. You belong with us.
Shunan placed her other hand over her belly, feeling the baby's gentle kick. Then we move forward together. This child will have a loving grandfather, a father, an uncle, everyone united. Tears shone in the father's eyes. He reached over, holding both of his children's hands, and in that silent moment, the fractures that had once divided them seemed to mend. Days turned into weeks. With the crisis behind them, Jiang City's business circles buzzed anew with whispers of the Zheng family's might. Shunan's pregnancy continued smoothly. The father reclaimed his original surname, quietly content to be home. The Liu family, disgraced and shunned for their abuse, faded from the spotlight. Though Jiang Ru remained outside the family's reach, word had it she left the city for a time, carrying her regrets like a heavy cloak. Whether she might find redemption on her path was unknown, but for now, the Zheng family focused on their own healing. Late one afternoon, Shunan stood in the lush garden behind the mansion. Ironically, the same place meant for Junxian's canceled engagement party. Now, the space was decorated for a modest yet heartfelt gathering, a celebration of family unity and the upcoming birth of Shunan's child. Shunan, softly, gazing at the decorations.
It's beautiful. I never thought we'd be hosting anything here after what happened.
Junxian came up behind her, offering a proud smile.
We have every reason to celebrate. Dad's here, you're back for good, and the baby is on the way. Despite everything, we've come out stronger.
Their father approached, carefully holding a tray of tea. He set it down and joined his children, scanning the garden with a mix of nostalgia and hope. Father, Zheng Wei, newly renamed, voice filled with quiet joy.
I can't believe how life has turned around. I almost feel undeserving.
Shunan shook her head, stepping forward to hug him.
You paid your dues, Dad. Now let's look to the future.
A gentle breeze stirred the blossoms overhead. Servants bustled about, placing food and drinks on linen-covered tables. A few well-chosen guests, close friends, loyal board members, and the newly allied Guan Yue strolled in, each offering congratulations and warm words. Guan Yue bowing graciously to Shunan and Junxian.
Thank you for everything you've done. Huaqiang Chamber couldn't have survived without you. Here's to a prosperous alliance.
We're glad to have you, Chairman Guan. Let's keep building a strong future together.
As twilight glimmered across the garden's lanterns, soft music played. The father lingered at the side, observing his children with pride. Shunan, radiant in a flowing gown that accommodated her pregnancy, welcomed guests with grace. Junxian, calm and confident, conversed easily with board members who once doubted him. At last, Shunan felt a stirring in her belly, a gentle reminder of the little life soon to join their family. Shunan, laughing softly, whispering to the baby.
You'll be born into a family that's grown stronger from hardship. I promise we'll protect you, my little one.
The moon rose high, bathing the garden in silver glow. Father, son, and daughter stood at the center, forming a small circle. They exchanged a look, one that spoke of forgiveness, acceptance, and the promise of days to come. Zheng Junxian, soft, earnest.
Sis, thank you for returning, for all you've done.
Shunan, eyes glimmering.
I wouldn't miss this for the world, little brother.
Father, Zheng Wei, voice quivering with relief.
My family together again.
Soft laughter intermingled with the melody of the night, carrying away old sorrows. The greatest wealth they possessed now was not in their vast fortunes or corporate power, but in the simple, profound truth that they had each other, and a future unburdened by the past. If you enjoyed this story, there's another video on screen right now. Go ahead and give it a look for an even more astonishing tale. And don't forget, we'll have many more uplifting and dramatic stories coming your way, so make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way, you'll never miss our newest uploads.